Growing up, our house was like a fortress of strict rules and sharp expectations. I'm Emily, by the way. My dad, Richard, co-owned a big tech company and believed in running our family like a corporate boardroom. My mom, Helen, stayed at home, her life revolving around maintaining the perfect household and making sure me and my sister, Anna, stayed on track, her version of track. Anna, 3 years my senior, was the star child. She aced everything without even trying. Or so it seemed to me, always stumbling in her shadow. Our parents, especially Dad, made it clear they had high hopes for us. Hopes that pretty much mapped out our entire lives: top grades, elite college, prestigious careers. This particular evening was like any replay of a tired old sitcom. Dinner was tense. The clinking of cutlery on fine china always seemed louder when the air was thick with expectation. Dad's eyes darted from Anna to me, like he was mentally tallying points on some parental scoreboard. "So, Anna, your economics teacher called today. She's impressed with your latest project. Said it was college-level work," Dad announced, his voice tinged with pride. Anna smiled, the perfect daughter glow up on full display. "Thanks, Dad. I really pushed myself with this one." His gaze swung to me. "And Emily? How are your grades?" "Still struggling with calculus, I hear." The food in my mouth turned to sawdust. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Anna's eyes flickered my way, a glimmer of sympathy before she quickly masked it. "Math isn't my thing, Dad. You know I'm more into." "Math is everyone's thing if they put in the effort," he cut me off. His tone wasn't mean, just matter of fact, as if he was discussing the weather or a stock market trend. Mom chimed in, her voice softer but no less insistent. "Your father's right, Emily. You can't just give up because something doesn't come easily. Look at Anna. She works hard. Why can't you be more like her?" I bristled. "I do work hard. Just not at things that matter to you." Dad's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means I have other interests. Like art." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Art is a hobby, Emily. It won't pay your bills or build a future. You need to be realistic." I pushed my chair back, the leg screeching against the tile floor. "Excuse me, I need some air." As I left, Dad's voice followed me. "We're only saying this for your own good, Emily." Outside, the cool evening breeze was a small relief from the stifling dining room. Their expectations were like chains, heavy and cold, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to break free. Not like Anna, who wore those expectations like a crown, always poised, always perfect. But that night, under the starry sky, I made a silent vow. One day, I'd find a place where I wasn't just Anna's lesser shadow. A place where I could be me, whatever that meant, without apology or comparison. In our house, everything was a competition, especially for my sister Anna and me. My dad had this belief that pitting us against each other was the way to breed success. He'd say stuff like, "Competition sharpens the mind," but all it did for me was grind my confidence into dust. I mean, imagine screwing up a math problem and then going to school with a rumbling stomach the next day because of it. That was my reality. Anna always came out on top. Whether it was math, science, or any school subject, she nailed it. Because of that, she was the golden child, the one who wore new clothes and had lunch packed with more than just leftovers. On the other hand, I was the one in faded jeans, trying to get by on scraps. Dad made sure of it. "You need to push harder, Emily," he'd say at the dinner table, barely looking up from his plate as he compared our report cards. "Look at your sister. She's setting the bar. Meet it or go hungry." The unfairness of it all could choke you. My mom, Helen, always backed him up too. "Your father's right," she'd add, in that quiet voice of hers that somehow sliced deeper than any shout. "We only want what's best for you." But I had a different idea of what was best for me. My room was my refuge, a small space crammed with paints, brushes, and canvases. I wasn't any good with numbers or business strategies, but give me a brush, and I could make magic. One late afternoon, after another crushing round of comparisons where I came up lacking, I escaped to my room, slamming the door behind me. I needed to drown everything out, the disappointment in Dad's eyes, Mom's sighs, Anna's awkward attempts to make me feel better. Painting was my escape, my secret world. I was mixing some blues and greens, trying to capture the storm inside me on the canvas, when Anna knocked softly. "Emily, can I come in?" I didn't have it in me to send her away, so I just grunted. "Yeah, whatever." She stepped in, hovering by the door. Her eyes roamed over my makeshift studio, lingering on the unfinished canvas. "That looks amazing, Em." "It's just a storm," I muttered, focusing on blending the colors, letting the brush strokes express my frustration. "No, I mean it. You really have something here. Why don't you show them?" I scoffed, a harsh laugh escaping me. "Yeah, right. Look, Dad, forget about my crappy grades and check out this painting I made. That'll really impress him." Anna bit her lip, looking like she wanted to argue, but instead, she shifted the topic. "Just, don't let him stop you, okay? You're good. Really good." The last year of school crushed me under its weight. Anna had sailed into the Faculty of Management at the prestigious university everyone expected us both to attend. Me? I was barely scraping by, my heart not in the endless formulas and business strategies that piled up on my desk. The day the college acceptance letters were due, the atmosphere at home was electric with tension. I already knew what the letter would say, or rather, what it wouldn't. Dragging myself downstairs, I found both my parents in the living room, the dreaded letter lying like a verdict on the coffee table. Mom's face was stormy as she waved the letter at me. "Care to explain this?" I took a deep breath, bracing for the explosion. "I didn't get in." "And you're not even upset?" Mom accused. Her voice was sharp, like she could cut me open and find the answers she wanted. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Your sister got in with flying colors, and here you are, failing." "I'm not Anna," I shot back, my patience fraying. "That's the problem. You never try hard enough. You're going to end up a stupid beggar." Her words stung, but not as much as they used to. I was too tired, too worn down from fighting a battle I never chose. "I don't want to be a businesswoman," I said quietly, the truth finally spilling out. "I want to be an artist." The room went deadly quiet. Dad, who had been silently brooding by the window, turned sharply. His voice was cold and furious. "You want to what? Throw your life away?" "It's my life," I retorted, feeling a spark of defiance. "Not yours. I've never wanted this. I've never wanted any of this." "You ungrateful child," Dad hissed, his face red with anger. "If you think you can choose such a worthless path, you can get out. Get out and don't come back." His words hung heavy in the air. I looked from him to Mom, who was shaking her head, tears of frustration, or was it disappointment, in her eyes. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll leave. I don't need this. I don't need any of you." As I stormed upstairs, my heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my parents arguing in the background. I shoved my clothes, my sketchbooks, a few cherished art supplies into a bag. With each item, I felt a chain breaking, a piece of the old, suffocating life falling away. When I walked out the door, suitcase in hand, Dad's final words were a cold goodbye. "You're no daughter of mine anymore." I stepped out into the unknown, the evening air cool and slightly biting against my face. It was scary, and for a moment, I didn't know what to do or where to go. But as I walked down the street, the weight of years of expectations lifted off my shoulders, and I realized I was free. The only place I thought of going was Grandma's. She had always been the soft counter to Dad's strict rules, a quiet rebel who nurtured my love for painting, despite his disapproval. So, with my world turned upside down, I found myself dragging my suitcase up her garden path, the familiar scent of her rose bushes somehow reassuring. Knocking on her door, my heart was thumping wildly, half out of fear, half out of relief. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, her expression shifted from surprise to concern in a heartbeat. "Emily, what in the world?" She didn't finish her sentence, just pulled me into a warm hug that smelled like vanilla and fabric softener. "I left home, Grandma," I managed to say, my voice muffled against her shoulder. Come in," she ushered, leading me into the cozy kitchen where a kettle was already whistling on the stove. Once we were seated at her table, a cup of tea in front of each of us, I told her everything. How Dad had disowned me, how Mom just stood there, how I couldn't bear to live under their roof a moment longer. Grandma listened, her eyes softening with each word I spoke. "You did what you had to do, dear," she said once I'd finished. "And you'll always have a home here with me." Relief washed over me, the tension I'd been carrying dissipating slightly. "Thank you, Grandma. I don't know what I would do without you." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Now, tell me about your plans." "I know you, Emily. You must have a plan." Taking a deep breath, I shared my secret hope with her. I applied to the Institute of Arts. On the internet, quietly. I didn't tell Mom and Dad. Grandma's face broke into a wide smile. "That's wonderful. Following your heart, that's my girl." The conversation shifted to lighter topics for a while, allowing me to breathe easier and feel momentarily carefree. But later that evening, as we were cleaning up after a dinner of her homemade lasagna, my phone buzzed with an email notification. I checked it, not expecting much. "It's from the Institute of Arts," I said, a knot forming in my stomach. Grandma dried her hands quickly and came over to stand beside me. "Well, open it, dear," she urged, her voice tinged with excitement. With a shaky hand, I tapped on the screen and read the contents of the email, my eyes widening with each word. "I got in, Grandma. I got in, and they're offering me a scholarship. Full tuition covered." "Oh, Emily!" Grandma exclaimed, her eyes brimming with tears as she pulled me into another hug. "I knew it. I always knew you had something special. This is just the beginning for you." We spent the rest of the evening talking about the future, about art and dreams, and making a new life. It felt like for the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Grandma's faith in me bolstered my own, and I felt ready to take on this new challenge. A few days later, Grandma accompanied me to the institute to finalize my registration. Walking through the halls filled with vibrant art and buzzing with creative energy, I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for years. "You're going to do great things, my dear," Grandma whispered as we left the administration office, my enrollment confirmed. Living on campus was a world away from everything I'd known. For the first time, I was not just studying what I loved, I was immersed in it. The transition wasn't easy, though. Drawing had been something I sneaked around doing back home because my parents had made it clear they didn't see a future in it for me. But here, at the Institute of Arts, it was my life. My first year was tough. The freedom to create was exhilarating, but also daunting. I struggled initially, battling the ingrained fear of my parents' disapproval and the pressure to prove I could make it on my own. Yet, with every sketch and painting, I grew more confident. By the end of the year, not only had I found my footing, but I had also emerged as one of the top students in my class. Professors praised my unique style, and I started to believe maybe I did have something special. As my skills developed, so did recognition. The school offered a few of us, the so-called emerging talents, a chance to showcase our work at a personal exhibition. I jumped at the opportunity. Preparing for the exhibition was intense. Every piece had to say something, to stand out. I poured my heart into each painting, hoping they were good enough to be noticed. The night of the exhibition was surreal. The gallery was buzzing with people, music softly playing in the background, lights casting a perfect glow on the paintings. I stood nervously by my work, watching as people walked by, stopping to look, to discuss. My grandmother, who had come to see the exhibition, stood beside me, her eyes wet with pride. "You've done well, Emily," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "I'm so proud of you." That night, something incredible happened. A local TV crew, who had come to cover the exhibition, featured my work. Suddenly, I wasn't just a student, I was an artist being talked about. The segment aired, and the next thing I knew, I was being invited to talk about my art on various shows. My paintings started circulating on the internet, gaining popularity. It was all so fast, so big. I felt like I was dreaming. The real pinch-me moment came when an animation studio contacted me. They wanted to use my designs for a series. Next thing, those sketches and characters I created in the solitude of my studio were moving, living on screens. They even started a comic book series based on them. And yeah, they paid me, which felt weird but incredible. I remember sitting in my dorm, watching the first episode of the animated series, thinking about how far I'd come. From hiding my sketches from my parents, to seeing my creations come to life on TV, it was mind-blowing. I was in my studio on campus, streaks of paint on my hands, and a blank canvas waiting, when my phone rang. It was Anna. I hesitated for a moment, not sure what to expect. We hadn't talked much since I left home. "Emily? It's Anna," she said, her voice uncertain. "I saw you on TV last night. You were amazing." "Thanks," I replied, taken aback by her call and her compliment. "I appreciate it, Anna. How's school going for you?" "It's fine," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Actually, that's partly why I called. I've been thinking a lot about what I'm doing. I'm not sure I'm as cut out for the business world as Dad thinks. Watching you follow your passion made me wonder if I'm just going along with what's expected of me, not what I want." This was new. Anna, the perfect student, doubting her path? It's never too late to change your course, you know. If you're not happy, maybe it's time to think about what you really want, I said, more as a friend than as her estranged sister. "Yeah, right," she laughed softly. "Maybe I need a bit of your courage. We can share some of mine. I've got plenty to go around now," I joked, easing the tension. A few weeks later, Anna came to visit me. She toured my studio and my latest works, her interest genuine. It was strange but comforting to have her in my space, seeing the part of my life that had caused so much distance between us. "You really are talented, Emily," Anna said as she looked around at the paintings, the sketches, and the splashes of color everywhere. "It's my world," I told her, feeling a surge of pride. "Wanna try?" She hesitated, then smiled. "Why not?" Handing her a brush felt symbolic, like I was welcoming her into my life in a way we hadn't shared since we were kids. As Anna and I laughed over her crooked paint strokes, I realized that this recognition was all I had really wanted from the start. As our laughter died down, Anna's expression turned serious. "You know, when Mom and Dad found out about your TV spot and the shows, they were furious. Dad said you're defaming the family name with your doodles. They really don't get it, Em." The word stung, but I wasn't surprised. "Let them think what they want," I said, shrugging. "I'm not living for them anymore, Anna. I'm living for me. And for the art." "Yeah," Anna nodded, looking around at all the colors and shapes that filled my world now. "You've built something beautiful here, Em. Don't ever let them tell you otherwise." Hearing that from Anna, knowing that she saw the value in what I was doing despite our parents' disapproval, meant everything. It solidified my resolve to keep going, no matter what they said or did. I was an artist, and that was something no one could take away from me. It had been 6 months of peace and creativity when it all came crashing down during one of my exhibitions. I was showcasing some of my latest work, which had drawn a decent crowd, buzzing with chatter and admiration. That's when my parents stormed in, their faces thunderous. My father, his face red with anger, scanned the room until his eyes landed on me. Without hesitation, he marched over, my mother trailing behind him, her eyes darting nervously around the room. The moment he reached me, he erupted. "This is what you left your family for? These ridiculous paintings?" He gestured wildly at my art hanging on the walls. "You're shaming us, Emily. You think this is a real job? Artists are just drug addicts pretending to be profound. I was stunned, words failing me as his voice echoed off the gallery walls. Before I could gather my thoughts, he lunged at one of my paintings, his hands clawing at the canvas. I gasped, stepping forward, but the gallery organizer was quicker. He called security immediately. "Sir, you need to leave. Now," the organizer demanded, as two guards quickly intervened, pulling my father away from the damaged artwork. The aftermath was a blur of apologies from me to the guests and the gallery owner, assurances that this was an isolated incident. But the damage was done. The evening was ruined, and so was my mood. Over the next few days, my phone was bombarded with texts from both of my parents. Each message was a dagger, full of accusations and predictions of doom. "You'll come crawling back once you realize the real world isn't kind to dreamers," one read. "You think you're successful? This is just a phase," said another. I tried to ignore them, but each beep of my phone brought a fresh wave of anxiety. It wasn't until I received an email notification about the animated series based on my artwork that I found a sliver of vindication. The series had just crossed another 1,000,000 views, and the comments were overwhelmingly positive, praising the creativity and unique style. Fueled by a mix of anger and pride, I copied the link to the YouTube page and sent it to my parents with a simple message: "See for yourself." After that, the messages stopped. Their silence was louder than all their criticisms combined. Maybe, just maybe, they had watched the videos and read the comments. Perhaps they finally understood that my art was something real and valued by others, even if they couldn't see it themselves. 2 years had flown by when my sister Anna called me with news that shook our family to its core. Dad had lost his business due to a betrayal by a foreign partner, and they were financially ruined. They had to sell the house and move into a small apartment. What's more, Anna decided to leave the prestigious university she never truly loved and was planning to transfer to another college to study landscape design, something she was genuinely passionate about. During the holiday season, I visited Grandma's house, where Anna was now staying. She was beaming with genuine happiness, a stark contrast to the stressed sister I remembered. "I've got a scholarship, Emily," she told me as soon as I walked in. "I'm finally studying what I want, and I'll be living here with Grandma." "That's amazing, Anna. I'm so proud of you," I replied, embracing her tightly. Grandma joined in, hugging us both. "You girls are so talented," she said, her eyes twinkling with pride and love. Over the next 3 years, my career as an artist flourished. My paintings were featured in top galleries across the country, and I managed to carve out a name for myself in the competitive art world. My work sold for substantial amounts, allowing me to live comfortably and continue pursuing my passion. However, the past has a way of catching up. One day, as I was setting up a new series of paintings in my studio, my parents walked in. The sight of them was startling. Dad looked frail and worn, a shadow of his former self, and Mom was dressed far more modestly than I had ever seen. "Emily, we need to talk," Dad began, his voice weak but urgent. I nodded, leading them to a small sitting area in the corner of my studio. "What's going on?" I asked, although the tight knot in my stomach already had an inkling. "We're in a bad place, Emily," Mom started, her voice trembling. "We've lost everything, and we need your help." Dad coughed slightly before adding, "You've done well for yourself, which we knew you would, despite what we said. We were hoping you could lend us some money. Help us get back on our feet." The request hung heavily in the air, thick with irony and desperation. I took a deep breath, the memories of their dismissal and harsh words echoing in my mind. "You both disowned me when I chose this path. You said I would fail and wished me nothing but the worst," I reminded them softly, yet firmly. "Yes, but we're still your family," Dad insisted, looking at me with eyes that were pleading yet prideful. "I built this life on my own, without any help from you after you turned your backs on me. You made it clear then that you didn't want anything to do with me or my career," I continued, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Mom looked down, tears starting to form in her eyes, while Dad simply stared, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry, but I won't be giving you any money, I concluded, the finality in my voice mirroring the closure I felt in my heart. They stood, the air thick with tension and unspoken words. We hope you reconsider, Emily, Mom said softly as they turned to leave. Watching them walk away, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. It was a difficult decision, but necessary to protect the life and boundaries I had fought so hard to establish.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.